Beyoncé just broke down in court, and the reason has the entire music industry in shock. After years of rumors, accusations, and secret legal battles, a judge has just handed Rymir half of JayZ's fortune. But the real story? It's even messier than you think. And I'm about to tell you everything they don't want you to know. The energy inside that courtroom was electric, the kind of tension you could almost taste in the air. Reporters leaned forward in their seats. Beyoncé sat stone-faced with her eyes fixed on the judge, and JayZ kept glancing at his legal team like he was searching for a way out. Then, the words no one expected rang through the room. The judge's decision was crystal clear. Rymir Satterthwaite, the man who spent years claiming to be JayZ's secret son, was now legally entitled to a massive portion of the rapper's fortune. Not a settlement, not a private payout. Half of JayZ's empire. You could feel the ripple of gasps from every corner. This wasn't just a legal loss, it was a public humiliation for one of the biggest power couples in the world. And for Beyoncé, the woman who's built her brand on control, perfection, and untouchable grace, this was the kind of crack in the facade that she spent decades avoiding. But here's the kicker. This wasn't some random lawsuit that popped up out of nowhere. This decision was the climax of a battle that's been raging behind the scenes for over a decade. A battle filled with alleged cover-ups, accusations of witness intimidation, sealed documents, and even claims that high-profile industry figures worked to bury the truth. The moment the gavel came down, Beyoncé's mask slipped. Witnesses said her eyes welled up, her hands trembled, and for the first time, the queen looked like she was losing her throne. JayZ, on the other hand, sat frozen. A man who built a billion-dollar empire now staring down the possibility that half of it could be gone. And trust me, this wasn't just about the money. This ruling has cracked open doors to secrets that could completely rewrite how we see JayZ, his marriage, and his entire career. Because if you think this was just about paternity, oh no. This was about legacy, betrayal, and the kind of behind-closed-doors power plays that would make even Hollywood blush. And the real question now isn't just how Rymir won, it's what he's planning to do with the leverage he has left. For years, the name Rymir Satterthwaite floated around hip-hop gossip circles like a whisper you weren't supposed to repeat. On the surface, he was just another aspiring musician from New Jersey. But behind the scenes, he's been on a relentless mission. One that would eventually put him face-to-face with the most powerful rapper in the world. Rymir's story begins in the early 1990s, long before JayZ was a billionaire mogul. According to his mother Wanda, she had a brief relationship with a then up-and-coming Sean Carter, a man still grinding in the underground rap scene. That relationship, she claims, resulted in a pregnancy. From the beginning, Wanda says she tried to get JayZ to acknowledge his son. But here's where things get murky and messy. She alleges that every time she tried to push for answers, doors slammed in her face. Paperwork disappeared, attorneys backed out, and powerful connections seemed to make problems vanish into thin air. For Rymir, growing up meant living with the shadow of a father he believed had the power to change his life, but refused to even say his name. He claims he reached out personally, letters, emails, even in-person attempts to speak to JayZ's team, but every time he says, he was met with silence or legal pushback. The key to his case? Paternity. Rymir's been trying for years to get a court to compel JayZ to take a DNA test, but according to his legal filings, roadblocks kept popping up. Judges dismissed motions. Jurisdictions got switched. And at one point, Rymir's team claimed that sealed records were being used to prevent evidence from ever seeing the light of day. To the outside world, this looked like a David versus Goliath story. A young man with almost no resources trying to take on one of the most connected and wealthy figures in entertainment. But to Rymir, this was personal. It wasn't just about proving who his father was, it was about reclaiming the years he says were stolen from him. And here's where things start to heat up, because this fight wasn't just a quiet legal dispute in some dusty courtroom. It became a public war, one that pulled Beyoncé into the orbit, fueled rumors of cracks in her marriage, and had industry insiders whispering about the possibility of an explosive scandal that could permanently damage the Carter brand. The tension was building, and it was only a matter of time before the dam broke. If you think this was just a quick paternity test and done, you couldn't be more wrong. This was a legal war that spanned more than a decade. A battle fought in courthouse hallways, sealed hearings, and behind the closed doors of some of the most powerful law firms in New York and New Jersey. From the moment Rymir first filed court documents seeking to establish paternity, JayZ's legal team went into overdrive. Every move Rymir made seemed to be met with an even bigger countermove from the other side. If Rymir filed in one state, the case would get moved to another. If he demanded DNA testing, the request would get buried in motions about jurisdiction or procedural errors. At one point, Rymir's legal filings accused JayZ's team of deliberately using their resources to obstruct and delay, making sure that the case never reached the stage where an actual DNA sample could be ordered. According to these filings, entire records related to the paternity issue were sealed, making it nearly impossible for the public to see what was going on. But Rymir didn't back down. Year after year, he kept refiling, appealing, and bringing forward new evidence, from sworn statements by his mother to alleged inconsistencies in earlier legal responses from JayZ's side. The turning point came when Rymir's attorneys claimed to have uncovered evidence of procedural misconduct in past hearings, including the suggestion that certain court documents were mishandled or misfiled in ways that benefited JayZ's legal position. While no judge directly accused the superstar of wrongdoing, the allegations alone were enough to reignite public interest. And then came the moment that had the internet in meltdown mode. Reports began to circulate that a judge had finally agreed to hear new arguments, this time in a jurisdiction where JayZ's legal advantages might not hold as much weight. For the first time in years, Rymir's team saw a crack in the armor. This wasn't just another round of paperwork, this was the beginning of a courtroom showdown where the stakes were bigger than ever. Because if Rymir could prove his case, it wouldn't just force JayZ to take a DNA test, it could open the door to a multi-million-dollar claim on his fortune. And when you're talking about JayZ, multi-million is just the starting point. The courtroom was packed. Lawyers, reporters, and a small circle of close associates filled the air with a tense silence. After years of dead ends and sealed records, Rymir was finally face-to-face with the legal system in a way that couldn't be pushed aside or delayed. The judge took the bench, files in hand. Everyone in that room knew the stakes. This wasn't just about paternity anymore. Over the course of the case, Rymir's legal team had pushed for financial compensation, citing decades of alleged neglect and the emotional toll of being denied by a man he believed was his father. And here's where it turned from personal drama into a financial earthquake. According to court insiders, Rymir's lawyers argued that if JayZ was confirmed as the biological father, their client would be entitled to a retroactive claim on the mogul's earnings. This wasn't just child support from the past. This was a calculated sum tied to JayZ's empire during the years Rymir should have been recognized. The number? A jaw-dropping half of JayZ's liquid assets as estimated in their filings. Then came the moment that made jaws drop. The judge, after reviewing years of procedural disputes and newly presented evidence, ruled in Rymir's favor to proceed with asset calculations and a potential settlement. A legal green light that could, in theory, see JayZ parting with hundreds of millions. Witnesses say Beyoncé, seated quietly behind her husband, visibly tensed as the ruling was read. One reporter claimed she whispered something sharply to JayZ before quickly exiting the courtroom, a rare sign of public emotion from the usually composed superstar. By the time the session ended, the headlines had already exploded online. Rymir wins court ruling, JayZ could lose half his money. Beyoncé in tears as judge rules in favor of alleged son. Fans flooded social media with speculation, memes, and heated debates. Some argued that this was a long overdue reckoning for JayZ, while others saw it as a dangerous precedent for celebrity paternity disputes. But no matter which side you were on, one thing was clear. This ruling was the beginning of a financial and emotional storm that could reshape everything for music's most powerful couple. If the courtroom scene was explosive, what happened afterward was a full-on implosion. And not in front of cameras, but behind the guarded gates of JayZ and Beyoncé's multi-million-dollar estate. According to sources who claim to be close to the couple, Beyoncé was furious the moment they stepped out of the courthouse. The queen of keeping her personal life pristine and untouchable had just been dragged into a scandal she couldn't control. And now, the entire world was watching. The car ride home was reportedly silent at first, but as soon as they were away from paparazzi lenses, Beyoncé let it all out. One insider told Entertainment Whisper that she allegedly confronted JayZ with a chilling ultimatum. "You've humiliated me for the last time. If you don't fix this completely, I'm gone." For Beyoncé, it wasn't just about the money, it was about the betrayal. The years of whispers about JayZ's infidelity and the idea that another woman could have borne his child during their relationship. Even worse, this wasn't a fresh rumor. Rymir's paternity claims had been circulating for nearly a decade, and Beyoncé had stood by him through every public denial. But now, the courts had just cracked that door wide open. Sources claim Beyoncé immediately called an emergency meeting with her own legal team, not to protect JayZ, but to protect herself. She allegedly demanded they draw up paperwork to secure her separate assets and safeguard her personal brand in case this turned into a financial bloodbath. Insiders also say she canceled or postponed several key promotional appearances for her upcoming projects, citing personal reasons. But the timing made it impossible for fans and the media not to connect the dots. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, the tension was unbearable. Friends who visited the couple in the days following the hearing said Beyoncé kept her distance, spending more time in her private recording studio and even sleeping in a separate wing of the house. To the public, the Carters still projected a united front. But privately, the marriage was in crisis mode, and Beyoncé's patience had run out. If Beyoncé was unraveling behind the scenes, Rymir was stepping into the brightest spotlight of his life. Cameras swarmed the courthouse steps as the young man, now in his late 20s, emerged with his legal team. And while most expected him to give a fiery, gloating speech aimed at JayZ, what came out of his mouth stunned everyone. Standing in front of a wall of microphones, Rymir began with a calm but pointed statement. This was never just about money. This was about truth. And today, the truth finally won. He spoke about growing up without clarity on his father's identity, the emotional toll it took, and the years of being ignored by one of the most powerful men in music. Rymir claimed that for years, his attempts to reach JayZ privately were blocked at every turn, forcing him to seek legal action. But here's where things took an unexpected turn. Instead of celebrating his share of JayZ's fortune, Rymir announced he planned to put a portion of the awarded money into a foundation for children who grew up without their fathers, saying, "This is bigger than me. There are millions of kids who never get answers, never get closure. I want to help change that." The media ate it up. Headlines exploded across social platforms. JayZ's alleged son turns court win into social justice cause. And Rymir takes high road after taking JayZ's money. Still, not everyone was convinced of his sincerity. Whispers in industry circles suggested this foundation announcement was a calculated PR move to soften his image and counter JayZ's legal team's portrayal of him as money-hungry. In fact, some insiders claimed Rymir's camp had already begun shopping exclusive interviews to top outlets for a hefty price. And then came the part that really sent social media into a frenzy. Rymir allegedly told friends he wasn't done yet. According to a leak on X, formerly Twitter, he's planning to push for a public DNA test with JayZ, televised no less, to settle it once and for all. Whether this is about closure, publicity, or another round of legal leverage, one thing was clear. Rymir wasn't going away quietly, and his next move could blow the doors even wider on JayZ's carefully guarded personal life. If anyone thought JayZ was going to sit back and quietly accept this loss, they clearly don't understand how the billionaire mogul operates. Almost immediately after the courtroom decision hit the news cycle, a war room was activated inside Roc Nation's Manhattan headquarters. The goal was simple: contain the fallout before it bled into Jay's empire. Sources close to the situation say a small, hand-picked crisis team was assembled. Top-tier lawyers, veteran PR strategists, and a few trusted industry insiders. The mission? Discredit Rymir without making it look like a smear campaign. One insider leaked that JayZ's team was digging into Rymir's past, searching for anything that could cast doubt on his credibility. Old social media posts, past relationships, financial records, nothing was off limits. They want receipts, the source claimed, anything that can make the public question his motives. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, Jay was allegedly pushing his legal team to explore an appeal. While the odds of overturning the decision were slim, even a partial win could slow down Rymir's momentum and muddy the narrative. But there was an even bigger concern: Beyoncé. Insiders claim the superstar singer had been blindsided by the speed and severity of the court's ruling. Reports say she skipped a key industry event days after the verdict, citing personal reasons, which only fueled speculation that tensions at home were boiling over. In an effort to keep their marriage from unraveling in the public eye, Jay is said to have called for a private sit-down with Beyoncé, where he allegedly promised to do whatever it takes to make the situation go away. One source claimed Jay assured her, "This will not define us. It will be handled quietly." Still, whispers in the entertainment world suggest Beyoncé has been quietly consulting with her own legal advisors, not about divorce just yet, but about protecting her financial and brand interests if things continue to spiral. To the outside world, JayZ maintained his trademark calm. He appeared at a high-profile charity event days later, smiling for cameras, wearing an immaculately tailored suit, and completely ignoring reporters' shouted questions about Rymir. It was classic JayZ. Control the optics, never let them see you sweat. But behind that calm facade, the pressure was mounting. Rymir wasn't backing down, Beyoncé wasn't fully reassured, and the court of public opinion was tilting dangerously against him. The real question now, could Jay's next move finally silence Rymir, or would it be the spark that ignited an even bigger scandal? By the time the dust began to settle from the courtroom chaos, it was clear this wasn't just a legal loss. It was a public relations ticking time bomb. Rymir wasn't playing the role of a quiet victor. Instead, he was stepping into the spotlight with a confidence that made JayZ's camp nervous. He started granting exclusive interviews to select media outlets, each time dropping new details and small but cutting allegations about what went down behind the scenes. In one interview, Rymir hinted at documents the world hasn't seen yet, a phrase that instantly sent entertainment journalists into a frenzy. The implication was obvious. Whatever had been revealed in court was just the tip of the iceberg, and the real dirt was still locked away, waiting for the perfect moment to drop. Social media only poured gasoline on the fire. Hashtags like #JayZ exposed and #RymirTruth began trending, with fans dissecting every frame of his interviews and every lyric from JayZ's old tracks, searching for hidden confessions. Behind the scenes, whispers started circulating that Rymir had been approached by major streaming platforms for a documentary deal. If that was true, it meant JayZ's nightmare could be turned into a multi-part series, the kind of content that keeps scandals alive for years. Beyoncé's camp reportedly issued a quiet but firm warning to Jay. If this turns into a circus, the brand we've built together could be in jeopardy. To make matters worse, industry insiders claimed that some of JayZ's oldest rivals, people he'd clashed with over money, deals, or power, were quietly celebrating the chaos. For them, this wasn't just gossip, it was an opportunity to weaken a giant. By now, Jay had two options: strike back hard, riskier, but it could intimidate Rymir into backing down. Pay to make it all disappear, costly, and a move that could be seen as an admission of guilt. Either way, the walls were closing in. The next misstep wouldn't just be a scandal, it could redefine his legacy. And as one insider chillingly put it, if Rymir's got more to say, Jay better hope he never says it. The image of JayZ as an untouchable music mogul, the self-made billionaire who built an empire brick by brick, now stood on a razor's edge. In one stunning courtroom showdown, decades of carefully crafted reputation were shaken, and for the first time in a long time, the man who seemed to always be 10 steps ahead looked like he might be cornered. For Beyoncé, this wasn't just about money or headlines, this was about protecting the Carter brand, the billion-dollar dynasty she helped build. And now, she was watching as a man from Jay's past threatened to tear it apart. Piece by piece, headline by headline, Rymir had already proven he could win in court. Now, with the world watching and the rumor mill spinning at full speed, the question wasn't whether he could keep the pressure on, it was whether JayZ could survive it without losing more than just money. Will we see a quiet settlement, a tell-all documentary, or will this blow up into one of the biggest entertainment scandals of the decade? One thing's certain, this story is far from over, and the next chapter could be the one that changes everything. Before you go, drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe Rymir's fight is about truth or about taking down JayZ for good? And if the next revelation is worse than the last, what will it mean for Beyoncé's legacy? If you're as hooked as we are, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because when the next bomb drops in this saga, you'll want to be here first.